and also leading people through all of the different parts of the construction. And he's been doing a lot of consulting and training one-on-one with churches and pastors throughout the country. And he's even getting some interest from people from other countries. The problem is there's only so many hours in the day, and Marshall's getting spread kind of thin. So his goal is to reach as many churches as possible. And to do that, it's just a very difficult thing to do one-on-one. So the plan is to do these type of sessions like we're doing tonight, or today rather, so that he's able to get the information to the people that need it in a digital format. Now, what we are doing in this process is we are doing this webinar, but I'm going to actually be recording the process as we go. So what we are planning on doing is kind of having a question-answer housekeeping part in the beginning. If you guys have any questions about what's happening, then we'll actually get started, and I'm going to hand it off to Marshall, and he's going to run through his presentation, and we won't be doing any questions and answers during the presentation. But at the end of the presentation, I'm going to go back and unmute everybody. Then you can have a chance to ask some questions if Marshall needs to expound on a point, or if you have some more specific questions about a particular topic. Okay, does that make sense? Pam, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. Stephen, have you been able to hear?
Thank you. I think you've got Stephen, not me.
Okay, haven't heard from Stephen. Stephen, your mic is unmuted. You can go ahead and talk.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Does that make sense to you, the way we explain the process?
Yes.
Okay.
Please remain on the line.
Okay.
Who's-
Let's see here. I thought I heard somebody coming in, but apparently not yet. All right. Now, Pam and Stephen, I'm not sure where you guys are from.
I'm from North Carolina.
Okay, great.
And I'm from Iowa.
Smithville, North Carolina.
Well, we've been having some great weather here in South Carolina. I've been enjoying it. Okay.
Marshall,
Thanks, Steve.
I'm getting an echo, a repeat of everything that's said.
That's partially because you have your microphones unmuted. Mute you later. Now, each of you should see a place where you can put the chat. You should be able to see a place where you can type in questions.
I do not see it.
Okay. You should have your GoToWebinar control panel. There should be a place where you can open up a little chat window. It says chat. And it should say type message here.
I'm not seeing it on this screen. I see
Okay.
the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay. Let's see. It's hard for me to tell exactly what you're feeling.
Okay, I'm showing the GoToWebinar viewer, and then it says preparation part 1, getting your house in order.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
seeing my computer screen.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. Does that help? Do you now see on your control panel a place where it says chat? It says type your message here. Okay, apparently we're all
Muted.
okay. We're gonna go ahead. I was hoping that you would be able to see the chat window that says type message here. We'd be able to see if you have questions or things in that. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to go ahead with the training. I'm going to hand off to Marshall here in just a moment. He's going to go through this training and explain all of what's involved in this part. And Marshall, if you hold on for a moment, I'm going to open up my recording software. Just be a moment. Sorry for the delay. Okay. One more moment. Okay. All right, record video. Okay, and
Unmuted.
Marshall, I think we're ready to go.
Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Marty. You ready for me to go?
I'm ready for you.
All right. Folks, thanks for joining us on this maiden voyage as we start through phase 1 here with 4 different sessions. As we gave to you in our pre-webinar yesterday, we're going to cover the 4 areas or 5 areas that you'll see on your screen that we looked at yesterday: planning, preparation, design, construction, and facility management. For years, churches, at least in my experience, were focused on the design and construction and really ignored, or the industry professionals ignored, helping churches properly prepare their house, their church, to build, and then going through planning before you started your design. And then after construction is done, we didn't really support the churches taking care of their facilities beyond the warranty period. And so in my observation, and it's purely my observation over the last 10 to 15 years, I wish that I had hard data that I could give to you that would verify this, but in my experience in connecting with thousands of churches over the last 9 years as a project consultant and on the campus of thousands, where every year I'd be on a different campus 100 to 150 times, different campuses through the year, doing presentations, looking at their facilities and helping them prepare to build. And in doing that, here's what I came up with. My guess is, with no actual data behind it, it's a guess, that somewhere around 70% of the time, when a church wishes or plans to build, it gets in their head and they start talking about it, they want to build, they start, then they stumble, then they stop. Then they regroup later, and they start again, and they stumble, and they stop. Having pastored the same church for 18 years as a senior pastor and gone through multiple building projects and 2 relocations, I began to get baptized into this. And then my wife's an interior designer where she helps churches, and we were helping guys that we had pastored and sent out from our church to start churches and to take existing churches in North America and in Canada, and we would come alongside them while I was pastoring and try and help them. Even with all that experience, you still have a likelihood that you're going to start and stumble along the way and stop. And I'm dealing with them right now, with the clients, the churches that I am helping, where they're coming across the challenge, opposition, something that is causing them to stumble, and the temptation is just to stop the project, or they're sometimes forced to stop the project. Our goal at Ministry Design Concepts is to provide ministry coaching and pre-construction navigation to help you properly prepare and plan, and then, of course, design and build, and then care for, steward your property in such a way that Christ is honored and people are brought to Him. And this is all for Christ and for God's kingdom, and we want to help you safely navigate your way through. And so this introductory 4 webinars today, Thursday of this week, and then Tuesday and Thursday of next week are live webinars that we're offering all 4 of them for one price. I think it came out to just under $29 when you got through paying the fees. But we're trying to reward you for going on this maiden voyage with us. Secondly, we want to get the word out, and we didn't want the price to stand in the way. And third, you're having to put up with us trying to figure out the technology as we use it. And so thank you for doing that. So if you want to hang on, yesterday was like drinking out of a fire hydrant. I'm going to slow the water flow down a little bit today, and we're going to look at preparation, part 1, getting your house in order so that you can safely navigate your way through. For pastors who are sitting out there, are those of you that are going to be training, recruiting, training, and engaging or deploying your people, your church family, to oversee this process and to be boots on the ground where they're carrying out this. It's very important as leaders that we know where we're going. Got a lot better chance of getting there if you determine ahead of time where you're going. And so in this, we're going to look at preparation in an effort to talk about how to get your house in order. What I'm giving you is not exhaustive, because we'll drill down in the weeks and months to come. Construction is a very deep subject. There are specialists in every area. We plan and are making arrangements with other industry professionals, one of them tomorrow, to bring them in and do webinars so that they can be a specialist, just like the medical field. I have a brother-in-law who's an anesthesiologist. I have friends who are family practitioners and surgeons of one kind or another, and even nursing being the specialist. It's all broken down into specialties, and so is construction. Now, it's not brain surgery, but you still have folks, architects, engineers, and others, builders, in all the parts of your facility and ministry, people who focus, and we intend to put them in front of you, make the information and training available so that you have some idea of how to talk to the professionals and prepare your ministry to engage with them and to go safely through the process. We go into this by showing you this project timeline about cost and control. Right now where you are, if you're planning to build, you're in the preparation stage, you're not going to spend much money, but you have the opportunity to make good decisions, and then you're going to reach a point in time in the process where you sign contracts with industry professionals and release them to do their work. And when you do, you're losing control of your money, and you're also losing control of the decisions because you've released both the professionals and the decisions you've made during preparation and planning, you've released that and the money, the obligation of paying them, to design and construct your facility. And so we show this to you to try and impact you with the fact that you need to do the preparation and planning really well, because it determines how well your project's going to go, at least in great measure how your money is going to be spent. So don't just skim over this part. Understand how important it is. Let me give you the first part of this outline as we look at how to properly prepare, how to get your house in order. Is, I believe, a pastor, elders, church leaders need to have a thorough understanding of the condition of their congregation. To help you, I just put this into 5 categories, and we'll talk about them. Okay, so as you look at that and you look at your congregation and begin to examine each part, maybe each family, but you look at your church family, would you say that they are, as a whole, fit? Are they healthy? Are there parts that are unhealthy? Are there some parts that appear to be dying, they're on their way out, or it hadn't been repaired, hadn't been restored according to Galatians 6, and maybe there's some areas where you have real decay going on, decline going on in your church, or maybe parts of your church you look at it and go, you know, our youth ministry is just, it really is dead. We need to revive it, not just, bring it back to life, resuscitate it. But let me explain to you the difference between being fit and being healthy. If I go see my family doctor today, he's going to tell me, Marshall, you're healthy. Everything is working. I'm carrying out my ministry, my family, caring for my wife. I have grown sons who are married with their own families, and I am healthy. I'm not on medication. I don't have a heart problem. I don't have anything that is going on. I can go out and cut my lawn and drive my car and, all the parts of life. But to take the discussion about the healthy church movement that started in the mid-90s, where Schwartz wrote the book on natural church development, let's just take that up a notch where Gary McIntosh, another church consultant, he's a seminary teacher, he talks about church being fit. So let me use a sports analogy. Ladies, forgive me. But there was a time where I could throw a baseball very accurately and very hard. And I had practiced and exercised and been coached to be able to throw a baseball 85 to 90 miles an hour, to place it where I wanted to, and I was fit for what I was doing. Same thing with basketball, when I play basketball. But now, in my mid-50s, I am not fit to go out and throw 7 innings of baseball or play 4 quarters of basketball. I probably would be leaning toward the dying part, the dead part, if I did that today. So here's the comparison to church. You may look at your church when you start to build and say, we are healthy. My question to you as a ministry coach and as a pre-construction navigator is to ask you, yes, that are you fit for a building project? Let me give you 2 options that are tools that you could use if you wanted to. And I'm not pushing them. I'm giving them to you as information. There are 2 companies that I know of right now that I believe are safe for you to engage with, where you can take a healthy church index. Both of these companies will provide this on their website, where you'll have a password and your church family can log in at home on their computer and fill out the survey, and then they do hard copies of the surveys. At least they did. Things are changing so fast. And they'll put everything in their system, charge you a fee, and it will spit out. For instance, the first one I would tell you about that I have used is Tag Consulting. I believe it's tagonline.com or .org, but it's Kurt Andre is the consultant that I used on projects when we were getting them ready to build. It's around $600 for them to do it for you, to do the Healthy Church Index. It will spit out, produce about 26 pages, and it will tell you just exactly what your congregation is thinking about your ministry, your staff, your future, your community. It's a tool probably put together by psychologists, mental experts who would test you to get a result. And they kick out by testing a third of your congregation or whatever number they need. I believe it's around 37%. To get a true reading of where your congregation is. Are they fit and healthy? Or is there unhealthy or dying areas, or some places that they would categorize as dead? And I would encourage you, particularly if I'm coaching you through your individual project, that we look at that and consider and see if it's a good fit for you. It may be $600 well spent for you to have a mechanical tool that would test. The second one is the Lawless Group. Lawless, L-A-W-L-E-S-S, the Lawless Group. Tom Rainer turned over his consulting. He's in charge of Lifeway, Southern Baptist Convention. I believe he turned over all of his consulting, closed down his, and just let the Lawless Group. Their fee, I believe, was $245, and I don't have a report from them to tell you exactly that it is worth your investigation. Because here's what happens. I have a friend. She runs triathlete. She's a triathlete. Biking, swimming, and running. She's in her early 40s. My family knows her, and I'm not good to do that. I don't think I'm anywhere close to that, but she has a regimen at 5 in the morning, 6 days a week, to get ready to do this. Your church, if it goes on a building project, in my experience, is going to be a marathon. It's going to be rigorous. Take your comparison, a bike, a swim, and a run to make it happen. And it's why I have seen personally in my own ministry with this, church after church after church call me and say, we started, we stumbled, we stopped. Can you help us restart? And so that we can face the challenges. How do we face this obstacle? And in my counseling is people helping them in their everyday life for crisis counseling. They look at a challenge as a wall in front of them, and I have to teach them that God's in it. And number two, that wall probably is just the front of the next step of your journey. You've got to crawl up on it, get on the next step, and you've got another wall standing in front of you. Don't mean to discourage you. I mean to prepare you that that's pretty much what going through a construction project is like. So when you begin to evaluate your ministry, let me read some things to you. Now, thanks to Gary McIntosh for putting some of this together. But I'm just going to read to you a list of different kinds of churches and their description. And then I'm going to give you some action steps that I put together. They're very simple, and you already probably know them. But to urge you to consider the condition of your flock. Are they fit and healthy enough, or do you need to go do a good bit of work to get them ready? So if you identify with one of the following categories or these dozen descriptions of church, then you need to take a step back, identify what needs addressing, what's unhealthy, or dying, or dead, and follow some action steps to resuscitate, to repair, to fix again, to put things back in place, and to see God renew that area of your ministry. Here's the first one. The guys call it an institutionalized church. Now, this is the church that has lost its way within the forms and program of ministry. This church is just going through the motions and has forgotten the real purpose for which it exists. From church science, when you look at the model of church, you want to guess at what point, when a church first starts, at what point do they first begin to get off mission and become an institutionalized church? My memory serves me correct. It's somewhere between the 5th and 10th year. They haven't been in existence very long, but it's so easy to get out of alignment with God's mission. This is one. The second one is the voluntary association church. Now, this church functions more like a democracy rather than based on New Testament principles. Competing factions help maintain the status quo because of a desire to keep everyone happy. In my opinion, I don't think you can, in my experience, keep everyone happy. I'm trying to please Christ. That's who I'm trying to please. And I want those who agree with me as I lead as a pastor to build people around me to see the Scriptures and see the Lord and to please Him together. But if your goal is to please Christians and not Christ, you've probably got a problem. Unintentional church is the third one. This is the church that often has good intentions but have difficulty acting on those intentions. This church has a hard time embracing an intentional process for making disciples. I don't mean to discourage you, but guys, I talk to pastors all over North America and gazillions of them. And when I ask them eyeball to eyeball, face to face, tell me your process for making disciples, I often get a blank stare or like deer looking into headlights. They don't really have a process, they have functions. Sunday school, worship, Wednesday night, or if they're doing small groups, and they begin to talk about what they're doing. But to tie all that together, you can easily lose your way in fulfilling the Great Commission. It helps to keep the process and the parts of the process and the people that are involved in it. Keep that fresh in your mind, examine, monitor, measure them to help you stay on track. Here's the fourth one. Us for and no more church. This is the church that practically believes that growth will destroy their sweet fellowship. The desire is to maintain a family feel, which can make it hard for new people to break into the group. Us for and no more is probably a sign of unhealthiness. The next one is we can't compete church. This is most often the smaller church that has concluded that there is no way they can compete with the program-rich larger churches, and so they stop trying to be the church. I took church I pastored for 18 years when there were 15 senior citizens and about 5 adults who were under the age of 55. I understand the struggle of the small church and know that thinking very well. You can't give into it. The next one is decent and in order church. This is the church that values the processes of functioning smoothly, meaning your committees and your business meetings, very highly. You value them, but you lack true spiritual passion for the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. Managing the business of the church becomes the most important thing you do, so the business of the church is the business of the church. The next one is square peg in a round hole. This church is just concerned about plugging people in to serve, no matter what their gifts or passions may be. This church doesn't consider making changes in their programs and ministries. Each year it's important just to fill the same positions with warm bodies. Whoever will fill it up. There's no process and program to recruit, train, and engage volunteers to carry out Ephesians 4. Time Warp Church. This one's stuck in the past. The Tidy Church. This church works to keep their buildings, facility, equipment, and grounds in great shape. If growth starts to shake up or wear out or mess up their facilities with new families and new kids, then they want to stop the growth because they view it as a growth problem. My Way of the Highway Church. This church has a vocal group, matriarch, patriarchs, a group of people who want to keep things the way they are. They want to keep them how they want them. Their preference is king. And no matter the issue, these people are not satisfied until things are done their way. That would be an unhealthy situation. The chaplaincy church, I think Gary came up with this one. It's basically treating the leadership and the pastor as the hired servant, and he's to do all the work, and you hired him to do the work. The company church is in a denomination that is only focused on what the denomination headquarters is passing down to them. And that's their focus. They're not talking to the Lord about it. They're not looking to figure out how they can reach their community. They're just waiting for it to be handed down from headquarters. And they aren't personally seeking for God's vision and mission for their church. The Play It Safe church. This church plays not to lose. It does not play to win. And it wants to maintain, keep a safety net for a rainy day. Spending resources to reach others for Christ is not really in the church's game plan. It's not a part of their action. There's lots of others perhaps that we could go through of these, but I wanted to hit you. Now, here's the action steps. Number one, it's a spiritual journey. You want to determine how healthy your church is, then you need to have a listening session. And the first listening session is that you and your core group of leaders listen to God to determine what He is thinking. Because if you're the average church who starts through, the first place of stumbling for you can be pushback from a portion of your congregation who is, for one motivation or another, not willing to move ahead. And if you listen to those instead of to God, because you have gotten a hold of God, and God has gotten a hold of you, and you come away with confidence that what God has said, He said, and you're ready to move ahead, and you have done so in a multitude of counselors. Because Scripture teaches us, does it not? In the multitude of counselors, there is safety. So before you go listen to your outside counselors or your core leaders, get along with the Lord. Number two, as you discern God's will and what He wants you to do, so you've met with Him, you've talked to your core group, you've got your congregation involved, and your outside counselors who have been through this journey before, guys like myself, others in your circle, and you're connected, your mentors, connected to your ministry, you've got to discern what God's will is and then create a plan to fulfill it. And if additional space is a part of your journey, you've got to develop and prepare a plan to move you through the process. Once you have the plan in place with the groups, with God and with your core group, your congregation, and your counselors, you want to move ahead to gain momentum. By the way, I'll say this as a kind of a sidestep here. I think you need to clearly articulate to everyone, why do you want to build? What motivates you to do so? Because if you are desiring to do it for the wrong reasons, it's likely not to resonate with people. There needs to be a very obvious reason why God would have you to go through this gauntlet of preparing, planning, designing, and building and caring for new property, new facilities. So you need to be able to articulate, are you doing it just for the people in the church because you need more fellowship hall or you don't have one and you'd like one? Or is it balanced out by the outreach into your community? Every church, I believe, has to find the balance between in-reach into your congregation and outreach into your community of those who don't know Christ. In the disciple-making process defined to us in Scripture, you've got to figure out how that plugs in to your life and the life of your ministry. Because it may look a little different in its balance and how it plays out in your own unique ministry design. Next, along with the ministry evaluation, is to pull together how you do ministry, and you need to have very clearly a church identity. Church identity. I believe you need to answer 3 questions. Who are you as a church? What are you called to do as a church? Who are you? And what are you called to do, your mission? And then third, how are you called to do it? Let me recommend 2 books to you that will be of help to you in trying to get a grasp on 2 things. The first one, in answering these questions, who are you? You need to try and identify, discern your church code. When I say this, it's like thin air. It's not seen with the naked eye, but it's there nonetheless in every body of believers, in every body of people, group of people who regularly meet together. Church, along with, I believe, other nonprofit and for-profit organizations, they all have a code, and secondly, they have a culture, and those 2 differ from each other. Let me tell you, it may be better defined. Code may be better defined by what it is, how you see it when something goes wrong. You definitely notice the absence of oxygen if you pollute the air and you fill it up with carbon monoxide. And so let me give you this example, and it may help you as we have only a little bit of time to go through this. We'll drill down into this later as the Lord tarries and gives me strength to drill down into this, because here's what happens when it comes to a construction project for your ministry. If I were going to loan, if I was going to give one of my kidneys to one of you who are listening to me, they wouldn't just say, well, it's very nice of Marshall to give one of his 2 kidneys to brother so-and-so, and they operate on me. They walk it over from my table, operation table, to your table, and insert it in you to save your life. What are the chances of my kidney, your body properly accepting and processing and functioning for the rest of your life healthily with my kidney? And the answer is it's very unlikely that we would be a DNA match together. When you go to do a building project, if your church is not of a mind that they need to expand your space or relocate your ministry or somehow renovate your existing facility so that you can better fulfill the Great Commission as God has directed you, how you do ministry and what you are doing for Christ and partnering with Him. Your church family will reject that idea, and you're going to get the pushback. You say, well, does it happen? Let me tell you, in 1 year, I had one church out west and one church in the south, both of them supposedly healthy churches that both, after full plans were developed, and they had spent over $100,000 just on architectural fees, that the church came to the final vote. They hadn't properly dealt with the pushback, and the church voted it down. They had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and thousands of man-hours and all the labor to stillbirth their project. Caught the image? And who of us wants to go through that? So why am I harping on this? Because you need to understand that if you don't prepare correctly and your church is not fit for the task, it might be healthy but not fit, that you need to start working as the spiritual leader and put leaders around you and with you to partner with you and pray through getting yourself healthy and fit for the task that God has called you to. Culture, here's the 2 resources that I would encourage you to get. The first one's written by Kevin Ford. I think that's Leighton Ford's son. He wrote the book Transforming Church. Transforming Church. And in the book, he deals and tries to explain, it's very difficult, what a church code is. It's unique to every group of people. It's unique to your church. And then the book on breaking your church's culture code, Breaking Your Church's Culture Code, is by Samuel Chand, C-H-A-N-D. and he explains the science of culture and applies it to church, and it is a good book. So I would encourage you to pick those up and get to reading. In the days ahead, we may provide for you cliff notes, a synopsis of a book where we're allowed to do this, and I believe we are, where we can take 240 pages of reading and give you the bullet points and use a podcast type thing to do that. But that's something that would help you save 5 hours of your time to get the meat out of the book without having to read it first. That is something we're considering. I'd like a little feedback on that. I know of one company that is doing it, but they're only able to do a book a month, and I'd like to see that done more because there's so many books, and you'll find them on our website, ministrydesignconcepts.com. 350 books broken into categories and subcategories, trying to get the tools into your hands, because readers who don't lead usually don't lead well. Here's the next thing, and that's community intelligence. And in talking about this, who are you trying to reach, and how are you trying to reach them? Let me give you a couple of resources that will help you with this. And the first is to talk about demographics. Demographics are the average or typical characteristics of the people who would come to your church. If you're a business that would buy your products or your services, characteristics include age, income, education, status, type of occupation, region of the country, household size. It may include the age of the children, the status of the home ownership, one's home value. You can look on missioninsight.com or perceptgroup.com and be able to pull from them for $85 to $250 demographic and psychographic information for $85 from Percept Group. I just used it, and I'm unpacking it with the church where we did a ministry audit for them to help them figure out where they're healthy and where they're fit, and then we're helping them get that done. Well, for $85, 6-page report, it told me not only the demographics and summarized it all for us, but also gave us psychographics so we know what people's spiritual temperature in the area. Well, folks, if you're trying to reach them, why not borrow some brains from guys who have made it their sole ministry to research and produce that information? Those are two resources that will provide demographics, and then psychographics goes a step further. This includes the community's lifestyle, attitudes, opinions, and behaviors. It might be where they like to vacation, kinds of interests that they have, values that they hold, and how they behave. And so it looks at three things: their interests, their activities, and their opinions, or what some guys call compass. It's their community preference assessment, fancy word for it. It tells you how they're thinking, folks. It gives you kind of your community's culture and helps you understand, quote, the fish you're fishing for. Christ told us he'd make us fishers of men. Here are tools. Well, if you don't have much community intelligence, so you understand the people that you're trying to reach, are best able to reach, and maybe it's generic for you, or maybe you've narrowed it down and know that you're best suited for reaching a certain point, and you make a branding and marketing, if I call it that, you're making an evangelistic effort to reach those people and draw them and introduce them to Christ and reach them with the gospel. If you don't want to spend any money, go to city-data.com, city-data.com, and read until you're sick. For instance, when I do these for churches, I could print out probably hundreds of pages on the city. I usually print out about 40 pages and condense it. It's just free information that covers all this different stuff. You can go there, or you can use the paid resources I've mentioned to provide this information for them. But remember, when you're going to reach someone, and I'll give you this quick biblical thought. Acts chapter 2, the Apostle Paul was in Jerusalem. He's dealing with Pharisees, Sadducees. He's dealing with Jews who have biblical knowledge and are spiritual-minded, religious-minded people. and he deals and addresses them and reaches out to them in one way. You go to Acts chapter 17, I believe it is, and he's at Mars Hill, and the way that he approaches those people who are not Jewish, but they're pagans, his whole speech and approach to them to win them to Christ is different. So take that for what it's worth. If you want to get some understanding of how you might put together a plan how to reach people, let me recommend to you a book that was written in 2007 by Tom, T-H-O-M, Rainer, and his research group is called The Unchurched Next Door. The Unchurched Next Door. He breaks the unchurched, folks who don't know Christ, into 5 categories. U1, U2, U3, 4, and 5. 5 is the most severe, who are antagonistic against Christ and can be very unpleasant to approach them with the gospel. All the way down from 5 to 1 is just a person who's waiting for you to show interest and invite them to Christ. It will help your people and you kind of categorize and identify people when they start talking to them, their next door neighbor, their coworker, maybe the person in the pew next to them who's listening to you preach. So just a tool and a recommendation to you to consider. Now let's talk about your ministry master plan. This precedes your master plan. And let me ask you, have you ever sat down and talked through your long-term vision for your church campus? I can make a 72-question with instructions, a 72-question questionnaire survey. It's really just a tool for you to answer these questions, to get your juices flowing about how you think God wants to ultimately use every cubic inch of your buildings and every square inch of your property, whether purchased or rented or leased or borrowed or begged, but how you want to do it, and think through it. Because as we move into the master planning phase, you need to articulate to the designers, to the construction team, the design team, how you intend to fully develop that property. It's just wise stewardship. And so perhaps we can, Marty, we can make this available to them and put it where you can get your hands on it, and hopefully it will be a tool to help you. But you need to be able to tell them what's your long-range vision. Don't expect the architect to read your mind. They're not mind readers. Okay? There are men and women who are greatly skilled and tested to lead you through the design phase and to design a building and coordinate all the industry professionals to come up with a plan that the builder can build within budget and it function for years to come. But I don't know any of them that are mind readers. They can guess. It's better that I help you get prepared to tell them. So there's no miscommunication, no guessing, and they can design a building that fits like a glove. The next thing is, what is your church model benchmarks? There was a book written by Gary McIntosh called Taking Your Church to the Next Level. He deals with church in 2 models. Now catch this and go buy the book by Kindle or hard copy. But in it he looks at projected growth rate in size of the church as it goes from a handful of 5 people to 15 people to 35 people to 75 people to 100 people, 150, 200, 200 to 400, 400 to 800, 800 to 1,200, and so forth. And he looks at how the church changes in all these different categories. And you need to, if you need to set some benchmarks as to know how your church is supposed to be at that place in its age and growth cycle, then this is one book that I'm very familiar with and use it as a coaching tool to help you mark where you are in the process and know where you're out of place and what needs to be fixed or strengthened, and be aware of it. And it's a part of your ministry master plan. Just like you would master plan your property, the ministry master plan brings everything about your ministry: the budget, the personnel, the processes, the program, the procedures, your operational manuals, your future vision, your mission, your values, your strategic planning. It marries it all together and puts it into a usable work so that you can clearly articulate and know for certain what you're to do next in phase one of your building program. You're preparing your church to know where they're going and ultimately where does God want them to end up. Secondly, you'll figure out what the bandwidth is of your property. How many people can you get on that property, and what kind of people can you get on your property and minister to at one time on Sunday, midweek services. You're trying to discern the possibilities, the potential, the capability, and capacity of your ministry and your ministry space and your manpower. So you need to know what your game plan is. Now, for some lighter stuff, this is really just housekeeping for you. But if you're going to prepare to hire, you need to have this done on your property. If you own the property and you're going to expand the facilities or even renovate them. My wife and I, she's an interior designer, we're doing a project up north, and they're going to renovate 50 and 60-year-old buildings. The buildings were built in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and it's way past time to renovate all of it. They still need to have these documents ready to go. A boundary survey, do I need to explain that? Probably not. But a topographical survey is how the ground goes up and down. It shows where everything is on your property, underground utilities, major trees, clumps of trees, your buildings, your sidewalks, your parking, your detention and retention ponds, where the easements are. It shows you, matter of fact, I can make available to you the minimum requirements. The minimum requirements for what a boundary and topographical survey should be. Let me tell you, it's the Bible for the civil engineer who does your site plan and for the architect and the other designers who are doing their part of your facility. They're basing their decisions on the surveyor's work. So they're going to ask you to do one that's been recently done so they can talk to the surveyors, vet it, filter it, screen it, make sure that they trust it, and then they're going to tell you where to put the next building. This document is very important. The second thing I would tell you that will really help everyone, if you have buildings that have been there, if you have not only the construction drawings, they call them blueprints. When they first started, they were printed and the lines were blue with the old stenograph. Though for years I've called them blueprints. But if you have the ones that they use to build it, but also if you're fortunate enough to have the plans adjusted as you built them, because you're probably going to make changes to the building as you're under construction. That's just the way it works. And if the architect reset the plans, so they're called as-built plans, it's very, very fortunate if you have your hands on them. If you don't, the architect's got to go back and may have to take some time and money to sketch up the plans so he knows exactly what you've got. All right? If you have previous master plans, so pull together everything you have about your property that you can put together, other records as well. And it's just a mechanical exercise, but it may take you some months to get all of it done. So part of the preparation, before you engage with the architects and they ask you for these things, let's be prepared for them. The next thing is money. I hit on this yesterday in our pre-webinar, that you need to look at some project budget items, and I broke them down into 7 categories. This document is available on our website, ministrydesigntraining.com/bonus. You can go to our website, kick that in, and you can download this document and see what I'm about to give to you. I referred to it yesterday. You're going to have design in your building. You cannot take someone else's design, borrow it, and go build your building. The architects have made certain that the laws are written nationally where they own the plans and you're permitted as the client to build them one time. So you can't just go take somebody else's plan. It's my understanding from lawyers beating this into me, architects beating this into me, very kindly, but saying they can't use them. Because it certainly would be a savings. 5 to 8% of the cost of your building and site work is the national average for what architects are charging to provide your design. So $1 million project is $50,000 to $80,000 and maybe more just for the architecturals. Then you've got civil engineering, audio visual lighting engineering, maybe IT engineering, and any number of other things. Landscape architecture that goes on top of what the architect is doing. Everything's a little different because there's variety in it, but that's generally, you've got a designer, site cost, construction cost, the structure, building the structure, FF&E and extras, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, and extra things. So as technology comes in, we have to put a category in there, at least I do, that's extras, that's beyond and above the normal fixtures, furnishings, and equipment that we've used for years, like a stove in the kitchen, like a projector in the auditorium, like a special board, whiteboards and chalkboards and easels and so forth that are used in your educational buildings, or any number of tools that are used in fellowship halls where there's a lot of new technology that is allowing you to do more. So that's a category. Financing and pre-construction. There are costs that come about with permitting, some management costs, some other fees that you've got to go through, zoning, appeals, and other things. And then do you realize that when you borrow the money from your lender, if you're borrowing money, and most churches do, I don't know what percentage, but probably into the 90s, and I'm guessing. But if you go borrow money during construction, you're going to pay interest only until you finish construction, have your occupancy permits, and then they're going to turn it into a mortgage and start your 10, 15, 20, 25-year mortgage. And now you're going to pay principal and interest for the life of that loan. Let me encourage you, the average church is paying off their loan, I am told, by those who try and keep up with this, between 7 and 9 years. But you are going to have financing costs. Contingency fund is putting margins in your budget for your project. It is for the unplanned and unforeseen increase or other expenses that comes about. And if you don't leave margins when you print a book, every book has margins, right? Where there's nothing printed there within an inch or so of the edge of the book, of the paper. You run off and you have problems. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Think of Dave Ramsey and apply the principles to preparing to build. If you purchase land or you buy property with a house on it, I'm helping a church right now that is, with several of them, that are buying or leasing established facilities, and they're either building them out or renovating them in order to make them. It's not everyone who's buying new property with nothing on it and going and doing and putting the first buildings on. I've done both. Okay? And so both as a pastor and then as a pre-construction navigator, that understand that you need to do this. The benefit of you plugging in numbers, sitting in your office and guesstimating, or having a ministry coach help you, a pre-construction navigator like myself, help you guess, is we can put ranges there that help you see whether or not you do the next thing, and that's a preliminary affordability formula. What can you borrow? What can you raise? What have you saved, liquidated? What money do you have on hand that you can put toward the project? Because you're going to have some initial cost in getting all the industry professionals on board and going through the planning stage, and certainly through the master planning stage and your planning stage and your design stage. You subtract what you owe to come up with what you can afford. Did this the other day with a church out west. I have a number of current clients, church families, who I'm navigating through just out west on the west coast, Colorado and in, out to the ocean. And I went through this exercise with them, and I plugged in numbers and then went through their affordability, and what they thought they could build when we plugged the numbers in and what they could afford was 66% apart. Meaning, I'll just give you a general number. they were wanting $3 million, and they can afford $1 million. Now, when do you want to find that out? After you've announced it to the church saying, we're going to do this project, we're building this 20,000 square foot auditorium with fellowship hall and classrooms and administration and nurseries and all this stuff to go with it on this new property. Would you rather find out that it's not, that's a pipe dream and you've overestimated what you can afford or never estimated what you could afford, and you've given your people, even to the point I deal with them where they've handed and put out on their website and on their easel board in their bulletin and had business meetings with their church and shown them this master plan with phase one, $3 million, and no one has set them down yet and said, what can you really afford? And after you figured out what you can afford by stewardship principles, which is difficult, how much should you spend? Just because I could have afforded X millions of dollars the last time I built as a senior pastor, we peeled that back 20% voluntarily. The bank offered us 20% more money than what we felt we ought to spend, and we worked to bring the project within that amount. I believe the church thanked the leaders for doing that, not obligating them to something. So you've got to, it's a spiritual journey where you get the mechanics of your money. What are you planning to build? What you project they'll cost? And how much can you afford? And out of that, how much should you spend? Now, what happens here, I want to talk to you about momentum, And that is to help you look at several things. You don't want to start and then stumble and have to stop and then restart, do you? Well, boy, I can tell you it can be sometimes not too unpleasant, but often it just takes coins out of the pastor's pocket, if I can put it that way. Not literally. I'm talking about his influence, impact, and leadership abilities and quotients. And the average tenure, I am told, of a pastor after a building program is 18 months. If that number is accurate, then you need to be really listening to what this preacher is saying to you about properly planning. You want to build buy-in and ownership by properly leading your flock. You want them to clearly understand your values, mission, and vision. You want them to fully understand and agree with your game plan, and they won't know it unless you go over it and say it three different ways, 5 different ways, and frequently. To use Scripture, I think Nehemiah went through it, every 26 or 29 days. It was that he would revisit the whole game plan so that he continued to support and build up, to bolster the buy-in and the ownership of the Jews as they rebuilt the wall. Well, you want to have your preparation, get it to the place, and use this as a gateway before you go announcing it to the whole. You've got to have your game plan together and be wise about this so that when you begin to help them, are people buying into your set of values as a church and your mission and vision? Do they look at your strategic plan and they have bought into it and taken ownership of it? And I won't get into strategic planning because my time is about gone, but you don't want to have to start and stumble at this place where 35% of your people are pushing back at you. You need to figure out God's mind on this and fix it. So here is something you can do. Go talk and then listen to your congregation. And you also might go talk and listen to the people you're trying to reach with the gospel. Because your Board of Zoning Appeals, if it's like the ones I've dealt with around the country, and you've got to figure out what yours is like, but you do need to talk and listen to people as you go through this. And we'll drill down on each one of these in the weeks and days to come as we go, because these are big topics that require individual attention to do exactly what we're doing now, to talk further about building buy-in and ownership and ministry design, to help you by an affordable webinar to get what you need and to give you the resources that you need. and the documents that you need to be able to safely navigate and lead your church, and then through a building program. Let me ask you, do you have any questions as we look at this? If you could find your chat or your question section, we've got just a couple of minutes here that you can ask questions, and I thank you for listening. But do you have questions you want to type in that I can answer? Go ahead and do this at that time. This may have been like drinking out of a fire hydrant, and I apologize to you, but that gives you some idea of how much information. It's taken me 30 years to put all this together, and particularly heavily in the last 9 years, trying to figure out how to fix what I'm seeing all over the country. And so for you to swallow all this and be able to digest it, you're not. It's going to take hours of your time and others to put this together to successfully navigate your way through it. All right, I don't see any questions here. I'm going to leave this up on the board there. Thursday, you'll receive, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, other emails inviting you to Thursday's 2 o'clock Eastern Time. The next one on this process as we go through it, and we're going to deal with how to build your team in your church. Very important. Marty, do you have any comments?
Marshall, I see Stephen has his hand up. Stephen, I've unmuted you. Do you have a question?
The question I would have is, in listening to your congregation, what methods did you use to do that? Focus groups?
Yeah. Yeah, let me tell you what I'm doing in June for a church out west. Is they're going through a building program, and I'll never share which church and all because we keep that private. But Stephen, what I'm doing with them, I'm sitting down with no more than 20 people because they had a vote, they got pushback, enough pushback that it concerned. They got enough vote to move ahead according to their parliamentary laws and their constitution. They have been surveying the people in writing, but when they took the vote, they had not gone very far at all in getting a portion of the church to take ownership. So my wife and I are flying out there. I'm in South Carolina, flying out west, spending all day Saturday and Sunday, and we're doing a listening sessions with them Friday night, all day Saturday, and when available all day Sunday and even Monday morning to be able to hear everyone out and help the church decide what their next steps are. You can use a gifted, godly man in another sister church if you want to, who knows how to do focus groups, who can give you an unbiased, in other words, he has no dog in that hunt, to help you really vet and figure out why is part of the congregation against this. So it's a listening. So you ask questions, and then you sit there and take notes, and then you ask more questions as they talk. I would tell you to do no more than 20 people at a time. The facilitator has to control it, but you ask drill down questions as you go, and you listen. And then you develop action steps from there and trying to determine what God would have you do next. Is that helping you, Stephen? So focus groups would be a way to do it, yes.
Yes, that sounds very good.
I can send you something in writing if you'd like me to.
That'd be great.
Would you mind? Okay. I'm not trying to push myself on you, but let me make a note here to do that for you. And let me put it together for you, and maybe we could talk again about it. But I'll send you, it's just listening session format in the guidelines. And you can do it yourself, or I can come do it for you, but I'm not trying to sell myself there at all.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Any other questions there, Stephen, as you got a chance to yak at me?
Nope.
Okay. Is there anybody else, or Marty, did anybody else write and type up a question?
I think Pam, I think you had a question. I'm going to unmute you, Pam, and see if you can ask it.
What was the name of the book that you suggested?
I'm sorry, we had some feedback there. Marshall, can you turn your speakers down a little bit?
I sure can.
and we'll try that again. Pam, I'm going to try to unmute you. Okay, try that again.
Okay, my question was, what was the name of the book that you suggested for the church benchmark?
Pam, if you could turn down your speakers.
I could hear her. You asked Pam about the church that deals with taking your church to the next level. Was it that one? Because I don't think I said the title. Hey, Pam, I tell you what, you want to call me when we get done with this, and I'll answer that, and I can email the answer to the other folks.
Okay.
She can't hear me.
Well, she can hear you. If you have a question, it helps if you turn your speakers down a little bit, so we can keep from getting the feedback. Another thing, and this maybe we can try this for future webinars. If you do have a headset with that would help, and especially if you have a headset with a microphone, that would be even better. And that way we can have some more interaction with you folks, because I know you've got some questions that you'd like to ask. But in the meantime, Pam, if you have a chance to turn down your speakers, I'm going to try to unmute you again so you can ask that question for Marshall. Okay.
Okay, my question was, what was the name of the book that you suggested for the church benchmark?
But you said for the church next month?
Benchmark.
For the church this month. I'm trying to think what I said.
When you were talking about the projected growth cycle and the projected age cycle.
Oh, I'm having problems understanding you. It's not your problem, Pam. It's the technology that's not letting me hear you.
Okay,
We talk in a few minutes when we're done with the webinar, and I'll answer that for you. Then I can give the answer to the other folks Thursday at our next conference.
Okay, that'll be good.
And so if you want to yell at me in 10 minutes, we'll talk through it, or email me the questions, and I'll email you the answers.
Okay, I sure will.
Okay, I'm hearing you better now, but make certain that I can give you the names of these books, and I'll even try and remember to put them up on the screen for you Thursday, folks. And if for some reason you can't catch the Thursday session because of an emergency, we're putting them up on the website. You'll have permission to download them and watch them and listen to them as recordings. You'll have access to that for the $29. Okay, so if something happens, you're not out of luck. You'll be able to get them later.
Okay.
Marty, do you want to close it down?
Okay, and that's a good point Marshall made. We have your email addresses, and we will be getting back in touch with you. I will be sending out another invitation for the next session on Thursday, so watch your email for that. You can go ahead and even at the last minute log in. I think Pam knows about that. She was able to get in right under the wire. But I will send that invitation out to you, and you'll need to respond to that, and just like you did today, to be able to get in on the webinar. And also, the plan is to make these videos available on the website. I will be sending information to all of you here with information on the site and the password. And this is a work in progress, so we will be adding information on that. I know Marshall mentioned a lot of information, and he mentioned maybe putting up some information about some of these books and other items on the website. We will have a resource section. It'll be much like if you went to ministrydesigntraining.com/bonus. You can see there's a video there from yesterday's webinar and also some resources. It'll be set up very similar to that. But we might password protect that. And I will ask you, because you guys are in on this training, if you can definitely tell everybody how wonderful the training is, but if you would please not share the links with other people in other churches. If you're going to share it with your own church, that's great. That's definitely what you need to do. But you know, we hope to have this training available for other churches when everything is said and done. So I hope that makes sense. So we're going to go ahead and shut it down for now. If you have any questions for Marshall, definitely just email him at marshall@ministrydesignconcepts.com. If you have any questions for me regarding not getting an invitation or anything like that, my email address, you should have it. It's hartman.marty@gmail.com. But I'll be in touch with you all on the next webinar, and look for that invitation and just register when you get it and put it on your calendar. But even if you're not able to make it Thursday, just remember we should have that recording up on the website. So appreciate all of you coming out today. Thank you very much, and we will be in touch with you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, folks.
Muted.